factoring polynomials ax squared plus bx plus c, so it's a trinomial when a is not equal to 1, so that means that it's got to be greater than 1. And the number one rule when factoring polynomials is that you need to see if you can factor out a GCF. So that's always the question you ask yourself. Can I factor out a GCF? You also cannot have the a term to be negative. So that would be something where you have to factor out that negative if a is greater. A's got to be greater than 1 for this to work. Now, this first example is 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. To figure out how to solve these, you notice that a is not equal to 1. It's actually greater than 1. So I'm going to look at my a terms and my c terms, and I'm going to find the factors for my a and my c terms. So I have 4x squared, and I know that factors of 4 are 4 and 1, and 2 and 2. So those are factors of 4. Now for 3, I have 3 times 1 are my factors. So what happens is now we're trying to find the middle term. We're trying to find our b value. And when we do that, we're going to set up our proportion. So this is the method that you would use if you were trying to factor this. And you're going to figure out, how can I get 13 using these values? What I'm first going to do is it's kind of almost like a guess and check method. So my first guess, what I would do is I would have 4x and 1x. So if I put that down, I always put my a values on this side and my c values on this side. Well, I'm going to say to myself, I have 3 times 1. So if I put 3 on the top, that would be 3 times 1, which is 3x, 4 times 1, which would be 4x, which would end up being, if you added those together, would be 7x. So that one wouldn't work. So what I would do is put the 3 on the bottom, put the 1 on the top, and I would say to myself, okay, 4x times 3, that gives me 12x. 1x times 1 gives me a plus 1x. So if I add those together, I'm going to get my middle term, my b term, or my b value of 13x. So how to write your two binomials, it would be 4x plus 1 times 1x, or x plus 3. Now, if I wanted to try to FOIL, I could check to see if I did it right. Well, if I did 4x times x, that gives me 4x squared. 4x times 3. So basically, this is the outside term, or your O term, and this is your I term in FOIL. So my 4x times 3 gave me that plus 12x. This is my O term, so my inside, or not my O term, my I term, which is my inside. So 1 times x, which gives me that 1x, which was right here. And then 1 times 3 gives me that 3. If you combine like terms, you get your original answer. So that's a good way to check if you want to do that. Now again, we ask ourselves, can we factor out a GCF between 2, -5, and -7? And we can't. So we notice that this value is greater than 1. So we're going to use this method. So we have 2x. I'm going to find my factors, 2x squared, which is going to be 2x times 1x. Those are my only factors for that. And for 7, you notice it was a -7, so 1 has to be negative. So for factors of 7 is 1 and 7. Well, I'm going to set up my proportion, and this one's nice because we only have one factor pair to work with. So I have 2x and 1x. These values cannot be negative. So the only ones you can change, because this is what two numbers multiply to get you that -7. So I want to get -5. Well, if I did the 7 on top and the 1 on the bottom, I would get 2x times 1, which is 2, 7 times 1, which is 7, and I want to get a -5. So I know 2 and 7 can make 5 if I added them together. I just have to figure out how I can make that work. So I'm going to do a -7. So my answer is going to be 2x minus 7, 1x, or x plus 1. So if I tried that, I had 2x minus 7x, which is going to give me that negative 5x in the middle, and that would be my final. So this would be my final answer. Now example 3, I find my factors of, I can't factor out a GCF, so I find my factors of 6x squared, which would be 6x times 1x and 2x times 3x. And for 12, I have, so a 12, I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. So this one has a lot more factors. So what I'm trying to find is this positive 1 here. So you can choose to do, which you're going to have to kind of do a guess and check. I'm going to choose 2x and 3x. Then I say to myself, what can I multiply to get me that negative 12? And I know one of them's got to be negative. So if I did 1 and 12, that's not going to work. If I did 2 and 6, well, now I'm going to try 3 and negative 4. So if I did 2x times negative 4, that gives me a negative 8x. And 3 times 3 gives me a plus 9x. So that's going to give me that positive 1. So my two binomials is 2x plus 3 and 3x minus 4. So it really is a guess and check method for that one, or for any of them, I guess, in this case. So I have 4x squared minus 19x minus 5. I see to myself that I cannot take out a GCF, and I notice this is greater than 1. So I'm going to find my factors of 4x squared. So I have 1x times 4x and 2x times 2x. And this one I have negative 5. So my factors of 5 are 1 and 5. If I set up my proportion, I know I'm going to set up this side 1 and 5. I know one of them's got to be negative, but I got to figure that out because this is my only factor. So I got to see what if I multiplied is going to get me that negative 19. Well, I know that 4 and 5 multiply to get me 20, so I'm going to put 4x on top and 1x on bottom, and I want to get a negative 20, so we're going to put that negative 5. So I have 4x times negative 5 is negative 20x. 1 times 1 is plus 1x, which gives me that negative 19x. So my two binomials are 4x plus 1 and 1x, or just x minus 5. Now this one, I noticed that my a value is negative, and that can't happen. Also, I noticed that negative 40, negative 50, and negative 15 have a GCF in common. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out what's in common with them. Well, I noticed that negative 40, negative 50, and negative 15 all have negative 5 in common. So that's my GCF. So negative 5 times what is going to give me negative 40x squared. That's 8x squared. Negative 5 times what is going to give me negative 50x will be plus 10x. And then negative 5 times what gives me negative 15? That would be a positive 3. Well, I noticed that here's my GCF. I can't forget about that. And then I have these numbers. So I'm going to try to factor. So I have 8x squared and 3. Factors are 1 and 3. And then 8x times 1x and 4x times 2x. So I know that 1 and 3 are my options. So I have to try to get 10. Well, what's going to give me 10? In this case, if I did 2x and 4x, 2 times 3 is 6x. 4 times 1 is 4x, which gives me that 10x. My answer is going to include my GCF, which is negative 5, times 2x plus 1 and 4x plus 3.